March 28, 1965, East Berlin. On the rooftop of the East German government's headquarters, a man clips a steel pulley around his 9-year-old son. 80 feet below, the death strip. Searchlights, dogs, guards with shoot-on-sight orders. He's about to slide his child across a homemade zip line over the most lethal border on Earth. The building under his feet was built by the Nazis. Now it houses the dictatorship that killed 140 people for trying to cross this wall. Heinz Holzapfel isn't a soldier. He isn't a spy. He's an engineer in a suit, married to a designer who decided his son would never live free under this regime. So he spent a year in total secrecy, building a flying machine from a bicycle wheel, a glowing hammer, and 100 meters of cable. One slip and the guards turn his family into corpses. One whisper from his 9-year-old in 12 months and the Stasi makes them vanish. But here's what makes this insane. The guards saw the whole thing. They watched 3 human shapes slide across the sky above their heads, and they did nothing. How does an ordinary engineer end up putting his child on a wire over the death strip and walk away alive? To understand how a 9-year-old ends up on that cable, you must understand the country that built the wall he is about to cross. East Germany in 1965 is one of the most observed societies in human history. There is a secret police organization called the Stasi that, at its peak, will have nearly 1 informant for every 60 citizens. Your neighbor reports on you. Your colleagues report on you. The man at the corner shop has a file on you. The country is a panopticon disguised as a workplace. And down the middle of the city runs the most lethal border in Europe. The Berlin Wall is not a wall in the way you might picture it. It is 2 walls, with a strip of cleared ground between them called the Death Strip. Watchtowers every few hundred meters, anti-vehicle ditches, tripwires, dogs on long runners, spotlights, mines, guards with orders to fire on anything that moves between the lines. From the day it is built in 1961 until the day it falls in 1989, it will kill roughly 140 people who tried to cross it. If you tried to leave East Germany, the regime believed you were the problem. The country was the answer. Heinz Holzapfel does not look like a man who would risk his neck. He is in his 30s. He is an engineer and an economist. He wears a suit. He has a steady job in the industry. His wife Jutta works as a designer. His son Günther is 9, with the kind of polite, slightly shy face you put on a school report card. From the outside, the Holzapfels are exactly the kind of citizens the state likes: educated, productive. From the inside, the father is, very quietly, done. He has watched the country wall itself in. He has watched friends and acquaintances vanish into the system. He has thought about what kind of life his son will be allowed to have. And the answer he keeps arriving at is the same. None of the lives Günther could actually want. Heinz has been thinking about leaving for a long time. The trouble is mechanical. Every exit is engineered to be lethal. Every method that has already worked has been studied and patched. The tunnels under the wire are flooded with informants. The car compartments are checked. The forged papers are caught. He needs something the state has not yet thought of defending. And then a summon arrives in his mail. The Ministry of Industrial Affairs wants him to attend a meeting. The meeting is at the building called the House of Ministries on Leipziger Strasse, a vast, fortress-like complex in the heart of East Berlin. It is the regime's own headquarters. The premier of East Germany keeps his offices here. The walls are thick. The corridors are wide. The Nazis built it before the war. The new state moved in and kept it. And it sits, almost touching, on the line. Heinz walks the corridors for his meeting and feels the floor of his stomach drop with a thought he cannot unthink. The state guards every wall in this city. The state watches every exit out of this city. The state does not, anywhere, in any document, in any plan, in any procedure, Watch for the possibility of someone escaping out of the regime's own roof. It is a building they cannot imagine anyone using against them, because they live in it. He walks home that night and tells Yuta what he has seen. The plan he is about to propose is, by every honest measure, insane. They will walk into the headquarters of the East German state with a 9-year-old child. They will hide inside it until the offices are empty. They will climb to the roof, and they will leave by air. They have one shot. What does an engineer build in secret in a country where every shop and every neighbor reports to the police? And what do you take with you when, if it works, you may never see your country again? For months, the Holzapfel family has lived a double life. By day, Heinz goes to his office, Yuta goes to hers. Günther goes to school. They sit at the dinner table and talk about ordinary things in case a neighbor is listening through the wall. At night, behind a locked door, engineering begins. The thing he needs is a way to get a steel cable, almost 100 meters long, anchored on both sides of the deadliest border on Earth, in the dark, without anyone noticing. He cannot smuggle the cable through the front door of the ministry. Steel is heavy and obvious, and would never pass the bag check. So, the cable has to come from the other side. Somebody in the West has to be standing in a particular street at a particular hour, with a vehicle holding the cable's other end, waiting for a signal. He has a brother who lives in West Berlin. He gets word to him, in code, the way East Germans learn to talk. He tells him to be there. He tells him to bring a friend with a car. He tells him to wait. That is the easy part. The hard part is delivering the cable across the line. The plan he settles on is, in its simplicity, almost beautiful. He will not carry the cable. He will carry a rope, a thin, soft black rope, 45 meters long, light enough to throw. Tied to one end of the rope will be a small hammer. He will throw the hammer from the rooftop into the dark, over the death strip, and aim for the street his brother will be standing in. His brother will find the hammer, tie a steel cable to the rope, and Heinz will haul the cable back up, land it in the death strip, and the dogs are on it before he can haul the rope back. Strike the road too hard, and the towers hear metal. Either way, the family is dead. And the weight must thread a needle. Too heavy, it falls short of the road, or too light, the wind decides where it lands. He builds the hammer himself. It weighs exactly 500 grams. He wraps the head in foam rubber so that when it lands on stone, it makes the sound of a small bag of laundry hitting the floor, not the sound of metal. He paints it with a phosphorescent paint that glows softly in the dark, so his brother on the west side, 80 feet below and 100 meters away, will be able to see it land. He paints the rope black so it cannot be seen against the night sky. Then he turns to the pulley. A zip line over the wall does not work with a hand. The cable will dip under the family's weight. The body must slide. So he builds the pulley out of the wheel of a bicycle. He files it down. He fits it with a sling that will hold a human being. He builds one for an adult and one for a child. He builds a flashlight from the cardboard tip of his son's first day of school cone, a German tradition called a Schultüte, narrowed so that the beam comes out the front in a single direction and not out the sides where a guard might see it. The light points toward the west. It signals to his brother. And then he packs a briefcase. In the briefcase, he puts the only things you cannot rebuild on the other side of a wall: their birth certificates, their marriage license, Günther's school report cards, Yuta's design portfolio, vaccination records, photographs of grandparents. If the family lives through the next 48 hours, the briefcase will be the only piece of their previous lives that survives with them. He does not tell his son anything until morning. There is a reason for this. The Stasi is famous for cultivating informants inside families. Children are talked to at school. A 9-year-old who knows a secret of this size could mention it to a teacher, to a friend, to a cousin on any day of the past year. So, Günther has lived his whole previous year ordinarily, and his father has carried the entire weight of the plan alone, and the boy will only learn what his father has built on the morning. His life depends on it. The day of the meeting is the 28th of March, 1965. Heinz puts the hammer in his briefcase under a folder of paperwork. He puts the pulleys in a second case. He puts Günther in his best clothes. He kisses his wife. He tells the boy they are visiting Papa at work for a special day. They walk together through the front doors of the House of Ministries, past the guards, past the desk, into the corridors of the East German government. The doors close behind them. There is no longer a way to walk back out of those doors. How do you wait inside the headquarters of the people who will kill you, with a 9-year-old who cannot make a sound? And how does a man hide his family inside the most watched building in his country? He has already picked up the room. In the months before the day, on every legitimate visit, Heinz has been quietly mapping the building. He has counted exits. He has learned the patterns of cleaning shifts. He has measured corridors with his eyes. He has found on an upper floor a public toilet that almost no one uses, and he has chosen a single cubicle inside it. This is where the family will disappear. In the early afternoon, the three Holzapfels walk into the toilet block. Heinz hangs a small sign on the door of his chosen cubicle. The sign says, in tidy East German official script, out of order. The cubicle is now invisible to ordinary use. The three of them step inside. They lock the door, and they begin to wait. You should sit with what waiting means in that cubicle. They have to be silent. Completely silent. They cannot cough. They cannot whisper. They cannot let a briefcase clink against the tiles. Outside the door, the Ministry of the East German regime goes about the afternoon business of running a dictatorship. Voices in the corridor, footsteps, toilets flush, a radio, a laugh. Inside the cubicle, a 9-year-old child holds his breath for hours. If a story about a family staking everything on one nerve-stretching plan is the reason you keep watching, a subscribe makes sure the next one finds you. You are watching for exactly the same reason they are doing it, to find out how far one ordinary person will go. The hours pass. The voices in the corridor thin out. The radio goes off. The lights in the offices begin to switch off one by one. The men who hold a country in a vice pack up their briefcases and go home for the night. By 9:30, the building is empty enough. Heinz unlocks the cubicle door. He carries his cases. Jutta carries the briefcase with the family's whole paper life. Günther, still in his best clothes, follows in his father's footsteps. They climb, stairwell after stairwell, listening at every landing. Past the offices of bureaucrats who would shoot them on sight if they understood what was in the corridor. They reach the rooftop access. Heinz forces the door, and they walk out into the worst weather of the plan. The wind, which has been a breeze on the street, on the rooftop, is a steady push. It moves the small flags above the parapet. It bends the antennas. It is exactly the kind of wind that turns a 45-meter throw into a coin flip. You have to remember what the throw has to do. The hammer must clear the entire death strip below. The hammer must travel about 70 or 80 meters horizontally. It must land in a street where a man and a car are waiting in the dark, and it must land softly enough that the guards in the towers do not hear it ring. Heinz steps to the parapet. He uncoils the black rope at his feet. He clears his arm. He cannot see his brother. He cannot see the street. He can only see the searchlight moving in the strip below his ankles, and the dim outline of the rooftops on the other side of the wall. He waits for the searchlight to swing the other way. He throws. The hammer arcs into the wind and disappears into the dark. What happens when one throws in the wind decides whether your family lives? And what is the sound a 500-gram hammer makes when it does not reach the road? For a long moment, there was no sound at all. The rope is paying out from the coil at his feet. He watches it go. He watches it stop. There is no scream below. There is no rifle shots. There is only the wind on the roof and the thin black rope hanging out into space. Down in the west, on the street below the line of the wall, a man crouches and finds a glowing thing on the cobbles. The The phosphorescent paint Heinz mixed himself is doing exactly what it was meant to do. The brother sees the hammer. He picks it up. He follows the rope back to its line. Then he ties the cable. The cable is the right length, the right thickness, and the right strength to hold a human being sliding through space. The brother and his friend rig the far end to the car's bumper. They tug. They give the signal Heinz is waiting for. On the rooftop, Heinz feels the rope go taut. He starts hauling, hand over hand. In the dark, 80 feet above the death strip, he pulls the steel cable up the side of the regime's own headquarters. Yuta works beside him. The cable is heavy. The wind is still pushing them. They are working in absolute silence, in plain sight of any guard who happens to look up. When the end of the cable arrives, he ties it off to a steel ventilation pipe on the roof. He tests it. He tests it again. The line now runs in a long, sagging diagonal from the roof of the House of Ministries to the back of a parked car on a West Berlin street. The zip line is live. He turns to his son. He clips the bicycle wheel pulley to the cable. He fits the sling around the boy's small body. He looks like his 9-year-old in the face for what might be the last time, kisses the top of his head, and lifts him into the air. You should feel the breath go out of the room here. A father holds his child by the chest above an 80-foot drop. Below them is the strip designed to kill anyone who tries to cross. The guards are pacing. The dogs are pacing. The boy is whispering about nothing. He is too well trained for that. Heinz, let's go. Günther slides. The wheel and the pulley spins. The cable creaks faintly. The boy is moving. Through the wind. Through the dark, across the death strip, over the heads of the men paid to shoot him. Nobody shoots. Nobody shouts. The boy reaches the far side and is caught by a man he barely knows. His uncle, his father's brother. He is in the West. He is, in the strict legal language of 2 countries, a citizen of a different state than the one he was born in. His mother goes next. Yuta swings her legs over the parapet. She clips in. She slides. The wind catches her. She lands harder than she should, bruising her shoulder against the cobbles, but she lands and she is alive. And she is on the West Berlin side of the wall. 2 out of 3. Heinz turns to the cable. And here, the plan stops working. When his wife and son went down the line, their weight pressed the cable into a long curve. Without anyone on the roof to hold the line up, the cable now hangs in a deep sag, the sag dipping below the edge of the parapet. To clip in and slide, Heinz needs the cable to be higher than his hips. It is, at this moment, below the level of his knees. He cannot push it off. He cannot get the angle to slide. His pulley will not move. You can feel the exact second the trap closes around him. His family is in the West. He is on the roof. Freedom is a few feet away as a line, and unreachable as a problem. He has solved every part of this escape except the part that ends with him on it. Dawn is coming. The cleaning shift will come up to the roof in the morning. The guards' patterns will change. He has perhaps an hour. He is alone on the headquarters of the regime he is escaping from, with everything he loves on the other side of a wall he can no longer cross. What does a man do when he has won the impossible and trapped himself doing it? And who saves an engineer when his own engineering will not finish the job? For more than an hour, he tries. He pulls on the cable. He climbs onto the parapet. He looks for any way to give himself the few inches of angle that would let the pulley take his weight. There is none. The cable is anchored on his side and on the other side at the same height as the bumper of the car. The cable is doing exactly what physics says it should do, and physics is now killing him. Dawn is starting to grab behind the rooftops. What he cannot see is that 80 feet below and a long shout away, his wife has been watching the whole thing. Yuta does not panic. She does the thing engineers do. She reads the problem. She sees that the line is hanging low. She sees that the car is anchoring it. She works out, in cold seconds, that if the west side simply loosened the cable a little from the car, the line on her husband's end would lift just enough to clear the parapet. She tells the men with the car what to do. They loosen the line. On the roof of the House of Ministries in the gray light before sunrise, the steel cable suddenly twitches and rises. Heinz feels it under his hands. He climbed onto the parapet for the last time. He clips in. He pushes off. He slides out over the death strip, over the guards, over the dogs, over the wire, past the lights, down toward the car and the woman and the boy waiting for him on a cobbled street in West Berlin. He lands. He is in the West. The three of them are together. They are free. Now look back and re-see the entire night. For the whole length of this escape, there have been armed men in those towers. Their job was to shoot anything that moved. Their searchlights swept the strip. Their dogs ran their wires. The cable above them did not break. The family above them did not break. And by the surviving accounts of that night, the guards saw it. They watched a hammer fly out of the regime's own headquarters in the dark. They watched a cable get hauled up from the west and anchored on a state ministry roof. They watched 3 human shapes slide one by one across the death strip 80 feet above their heads. And they did nothing. Because the regime that watches everything could not, in its entire imagination, picture what was actually happening. A family ziplining out of the headquarters of the East German state was, to a paranoid system, not an escape. It had to be one of their own operations. It had to be Stasi agents being inserted into the West for some larger plan that they, the guards, were not cleared to know about. To stop it was to interfere with their own state. So they watched it, and they let it happen. The thing Heinz built that night was not really a zip line. It was a mirror, held up to a regime so certain of its own omnipresence that it could not imagine being beaten by an engineer with a bicycle wheel and a glowing hammer. He did not beat the wall. He beat their assumptions. The cost has to be told honestly. He gambled his 9-year-old's life on his engineering and on the enemy's certainty about itself. He won by a narrow margin of wind and timing. About 140 other human beings would die on this border before it came down. The wall would stand for another 24 years. And the building he stood on top of that night, the Nazi-built fortress that housed the dictatorship of the German Democratic Republic, is today the Federal Ministry of Finance of a free and reunified Germany. The regime that watched everything was gone. The family it could not imagine is what history remembers. Heinz and Jutta built a new life in the West. Günther grows up on the side of the wall his father chose for him. The briefcase, with its school report cards and its vaccination papers and its photographs of grandparents, becomes the only physical proof that they ever had a life before the wire. The hammer, painted with its glow-in-the-dark paint, ends up in a museum. People file past it and read the small card that explains what it is and what it did, and almost nobody quite believes it. He never built another zip line. He never had to. The thing he built that one March night is, in the end, the only piece of engineering most people will ever remember a man named Heinz Holzapfel for. It is enough. The most total systems on Earth are not broken by force. They are undone by the one thing they are too arrogant to watch for. An ordinary man with an ordinary family who refused to believe in the wall. There is another family who escaped a dictatorship through something even more unlikely than a homemade pulley. And that story is one click away. If this story keeps you up, there's another one that will finish the job. A 28-year-old East German chemical engineer decided that the only door out of his country was the Baltic Sea, and he built a torpedo-shaped scooter powered by a moped engine, strapped himself beneath it in a homemade wetsuit, and dragged himself 15 miles through freezing black water toward a distant Danish lightship, while patrol boats above had standing orders to shoot anything that surfaced. That video is on screen now.